Hi, I'm going to read another story from No Hope Beyond This Point this week. This one is called The Trail, which is inspired by where I am currently walking on my lunch break. I hope you enjoy it. It should be nice and creepy. The idea came to me walking this trail when I heard somebody scuffling feet behind me who is a speed walker. Thankfully, the story for me ended well. This one, though, not so much. So, enjoy. The Trail, from No Hope Beyond This Point. Seth strolls into the break room at work to grab something to drink from the vending machine. His friend Brian comes in after him. "How was your day off?" Brian greets him. "Good." Seth pulls his drink out of the machine and opens the top. "I found a new place to jog." "Oh yeah? Where?" Brian asks, his interest piqued. "Over by the industrial park. I've driven past it before, but yesterday I decided to check it out." Seth takes a sip of his drink, then notices his friend's face. "What?" he questions him. "What was wrong with Hyde Park?" Brian prods. Seth shrugs. "Nothing, but a change of scenery is nice, and this place was actually pretty scenic." "At the industrial walking trail." "I've heard things, man. Maybe stick to Hyde Park. It's safer there." "Safer?" Seth quirks an eyebrow at his friend. "Yeah, safer. And we're going to be late." Seth glances at the clock. He takes another sip of his drink before following Brian back to the loading docks. After a few hours of unloading boxes and stocking shelves, Seth and his coworkers go to punch out. "Hey, Brian," Seth calls to his friend as he catches up to him. "What did you mean earlier about Hyde Park being safer?" "Safer than what?" one of the other workers chimes in. "Safer than jogging by the industrial park," Seth answers. "Yeah, you don't want to go there," the coworker warns. Seth scoffs. "What is it about that place?" "Look," Brian states, "it's just that people go missing there. I mean, they could be dead, but the police never find a body." Seth sees the worried faces around him, but he's skeptical. The trail seemed clean and safe to him. "I don't mean to be rude," he says, "but you're making it sound like a ghost story. How many people have actually gone missing there? It's surrounded by businesses, and you can't really get lost. There's a path." "I don't know," Brian tells him. "I guess at least 10 in the past few years. You should be careful if you're going to keep going there. If the police have checked it out, there's got to be something going on." "Exactly," one of the others agrees. "Stick to Hyde Park." On Seth's next day off, he drives over to Hyde Park. As soon as he pulls in, he starts thinking about the industrial walking trail. Everyone at work had something to say about it. Their tales only further intrigued him. It all just sounded like local lore. He even told them that. "Every town has some place they claim is haunted. Doesn't mean it is," he had commented. Now here he is, sitting in his car facing Hyde Park. But he has to admit he'd rather be at the trail. After a few moments of hesitation, Seth puts his car in reverse and backs out. He turns the wheel, puts the car into drive, and heads over to the industrial walking trail. The day is bright, the air is crisp, and the leaves are only beginning to fall off the trees. Seth stops his car on the side of the road near one of the entrances to the walking trail. There are several cars parked at the buildings nearby, most likely belonging to the employees inside. Seth shakes his head at the superstitions he's heard. Maybe they've just never been out here, he considers. Their loss. He cuts the engine and gets out. He locks up and pockets his keys. Stepping onto the sidewalk, he does a few stretches to loosen his muscles. He looks down the path, jogging in place for a moment. "Seems I'll have it all to myself," he thinks with a grin, then heads down the trail. As he jogs, he compares Hyde Park to the walking trail. He likes that this path is made of compact dirt and pebbles instead of asphalt. And while the park is open and manicured, it's flat. Seth prefers the varying terrain of the trail, which begins to wind behind the buildings. As it does, the sound of the cars on the nearby highway fades into the background. while the noise of birds chittering in the trees seemed to swell. Seth's feet pound on the gravel, his breath coming in deeper huffs as he rounds a bend. The path slopes down towards a marshy meadow. He sees a bridge and a gazebo up ahead. He continues on his jog, up a gentle hill to a small wooded area where he turns back. After 20 minutes, he slows down to a brisk walk. Reeds of grass sway in the light breeze, and the late-blooming flowers on the hillside bend in the wind. Seth lets his feet carry him back to the entrance he parked at. He doesn't encounter anyone today, but he didn't really expect to. As he steps onto the sidewalk, he hears a soft, scuffling sound behind him, and a great swarm of birds take flight with a swoosh. Seth flinches and looks back. He doesn't see a reason for the birds taking off. He stands there watching them for a moment before pulling his keys out and hopping into his car. He glances back down the trail. It looks so serene, just like the first time he came. Seth makes a mental plan to come back again. Over the next several weeks, Seth opts to go to Hyde Park only once, returning instead to the industrial walking trail on his days off. He usually starts closer to the bridge, but today he begins by the wooded area. The wind blows a cool breeze and Seth picks up his pace. He pushes himself a little harder today. He makes it to the gazebo, then over the bridge, before he turns around and jogs back. As he nears the small woods again, he slows down, his breathing heavier. It's chillier here with the trees blocking out some of the sun, but the crunch of leaves under his feet makes Seth smile. He's always liked fall. He watches a chipmunk scamper across the path, kicking up a few pebbles as it goes. Once his breathing evens out, Seth hears the leaves rustle, and then notices another sound. It's a sound he's heard before, the sound of someone briskly walking, their shoes scuffing the gravel. It's faint, but there. Seth turns to look back, but can't see anyone. Parts of the path are obscured by the foliage and dips in the terrain. The scuffling sound seems closer and is accompanied by the soft rustle of clothes moving. He shrugs to himself and continues towards the end of the path. He finds the idea of someone else using the trail a good thing. It's nice to know that not everyone is scared off by a story, he thinks. A cold wind stirs and the birds in the trees still. The sound of dragging steps seems to be right behind him. Seth glances back over his shoulder, but the path is clear. He stops, standing there with a frown on his face. The quiet scuffling fades away on the wind. A few gravel stones hit his shoe and Seth involuntarily jumps. His nerves are on edge. He dismisses the eerie feeling he has, reminding himself that sound travels, and another person on the path is a good thing. A few leaves blow across the pebbled surface of the trail, and the birds began to chirp again. Seth turns back towards the entrance and the road beyond. As he gets to his car, though, Seth swears he hears the gentle swishing of clothes and the sound of shoes lumbering away from him. "Please tell me you're not still going to the trail by the industrial park," Brian questions Seth as they clock in. "I am," Seth admits, "and nothing has happened. Maybe I should get a shirt that says, 'I survived the trail,'" he jokes. "Ha," Brian returns. "You could come with me sometime," Seth suggests. "See how peaceful and safe it is. Besides, I'm not the only one who uses the trail. I've heard someone else walking it." "How many times have you been there?" Brian asks, concerned. Seth thinks for a moment. About 5 times now." "You're either brave or stupid," Brian tells him. Seth pulls up to the curb and shuts off the engine. He's had a long week and decided to jog after work for once. Only a few cars are in the surrounding parking lots, but there's still plenty of daylight left to enjoy. Hopping out of his car and onto the sidewalk, Seth begins his stretches. He listens to the birds twittering in the trees that line the road. After several minutes of warming up his muscles, Seth goes into a light jog, his feet following the gentle bend of the trail. The foliage becomes denser as he heads away from the buildings. Small animals move in the undergrowth looking for something to eat. Seth takes a deep breath of fresh air. He doesn't understand how anyone could be afraid of this place. He finds it to be a refuge from city living. On his return trip past the marshy area, he slows down to a walk, the sunlight just beginning to dim as twilight approaches. Seth's shoes crunch over leaves and gravel, the sounds of nearby traffic barely reaching his ears. The wind picks up for a moment, blowing the grass stalks together. A few pebbles shift under Seth's feet, and a grasshopper hops out of the way. It takes him a moment to register an additional noise in the background, one that's coming from somewhere behind him. He's heard this shambling gait before. It's just the walker, he tells himself, choosing to ignore it. However, the noise will not be ignored. Seth hears it grow louder. He tries to keep his step the same speed, refusing to be frightened by someone walking. However, nerves get the best of him, and he begins jogging again. He strains to listen for the footfalls behind him, hearing nothing at first. Then the crunching of leaves and the scuffing of shoes reaches him. His eyebrows furrow. How can they be catching up to me? I'm jogging, and it still just sounds as if they're walking. His steps falter and he stops, heart hammering in his chest. The sound fades away, and he lets out a huff of air. Seth cranes his neck, trying to see around the sloping hills and scattered trees, but nothing catches his eye. It seems like he's alone, but he doesn't feel alone. Seth shakes away his unease and continues walking. He makes it one full step before stopping again. Further up the path is a woman. She's standing there, looking at him. She doesn't move, but neither does he. "Hi," he calls uncertainly, raising a hand in greeting. "Nice day." She raises her hand, mirroring his action, and shouts back to him, "Hi, nice day." "Okay," Seth thinks. "I was just finishing up," he yells. "Trail's all yours." She parrots him again, his words coming back in her hoarse, phlegmy voice. Not wanting to spend a second longer with this odd woman, Seth heads towards her with the intention of going around and getting quickly to his car. As soon as he begins walking, she does too. The woman moves swiftly, her shoes dragging on the dirt and gravel, a small grin on her face that widens as they get closer. Her bent arms pump in time with her step. They start to pass each other, and Seth can't help but give her wide berth. He turns his head to watch her go. Her dead, milky white eyes meet his. Her grin stretches back in a grimace exposing rotten teeth. She raises a hand in greeting again. "Hi, nice day," she screams at Seth, her rank odor hitting him full force. He turns to run now, but she clamps an impressively strong hand on his arm, jerking him towards the tall grasses and marshy ground beyond. He yells and yanks himself away from her, but she doesn't relent. Her slimy fingers tighten as Seth nearly escapes her grip. He digs in with his feet and leans heavily away from her, trying to use his body weight to break free. She lets go and Seth lands with a grunt. His hands break some of the fall, but the air still rushes out of him. He quickly begins scrabbling away from her, struggling to find purchase on the trail. She shuffles next to him and bends down, peering into his face. Her matted hair falls forward. "Trail's all yours," she rasps at him. He tries to back away, but with a blur of speed, she grabs him by the ankle and yanks him off the path. His scream causes the birds to take flight. When the police are called to investigate the car left by the path, they comb the trail for any sign of Seth. The only things they ever find are a few fingernails embedded in the gravel and a torn jacket snagged by some shrubs. The end. I hope that story was nice and creepy for you. Seth didn't think it was, but I'm sure you did. Oh. Sorry, thought I heard something. Just the leaves rustling through the tall grasses out here with me, but I'm fine. I will be back to read another story in 2 weeks.